Hi friends, Dean here with Escape to Gaming. Today is a very special video response to my good friend Alan at MainMeister. I was sitting down with my supper last night at my PC and he just uploaded a fantastic video about if you can go back in time to 1 week of your life that where gaming just gelled and it was the most memorable, very special, magical, pinnacle moment for you. What would that time and place be? And not only that, but he took the time to really paint a beautiful picture of why that was special for him, kind of where he was in that setting and place and time. And it was a surprisingly very enjoyable video. I'm going to certainly link it down below. Scott Bailey, Scott's Game Asylum, also did an immediate VR to it, which I thought was fantastic. And I woke up with my morning black coffee this morning, and my good buddy Ian at Bangkok Ian had his video below as well. I'm going to link both of those videos below because I think both of them were really good. And it's nice to see kind of a cross-section of different gamers from different generations and just what gaming meant to them. I'm going to add a twist to it. Now, one of the things that Alan mentioned was that as he kind of went through the generations of gaming, that nothing can really beat that initial pinnacle moment that you have when you get your very first console and games and all that. And there is a lot of truth to that, and I can certainly agree with that. It'd be very easy just to go back through, and I'm going to get into them, my very first console and memories. He had stated that over time, with each series of each generation of consoles coming out, that he lost less and less, interest in it. It wasn't as magical or as special as that first one, and that within, and it's, including with even the consoles in modern gaming today, it's like it's almost meaningless. It doesn't have any impact at all. You could care less, in a way. And I can certainly relate to aspects of that. But for me, maybe it's because I'm right-brained or I'm an artist or what have you. I found that it was really hard to pin down just 1 week or just one period or era, because for me personally, there were, and I'm going to get into a couple of the consoles, there were other generations and console launches that had almost an equal impact on me personally. Now maybe that's just where I was in my place mentally and emotionally in my life as I was enjoying those new games and those new consoles, but I'm one of those type where early on with movies and VHS, and televisions and technology, and then eventually DVDs, and I was always rooting and pulling for the latest tech. I want to see better. I want to see more. I wanted to see those better graphics, so more immersion and more immersive worlds. So for me, it almost is the reverse. Even though I loved those original feelings and nostalgia, and at one point, I may have to get a C64 again. I have, via my new modded Xbox, there's a program in there with tons of C64 games. I haven't even gone through the entire list. I see that Airborne Rangers and a few of my favorites, Gunship and what have you, some of my favorites are in there. I'm going to have to get a little adapter to do a keyboard and all that. But I can honestly say that there are other generations that meant just as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you my number one pinnacle week or place in time where gaming really gelled and was at its absolute magical pinnacle or apogee, and then I'm also going to give you 2 other examples. So basically it's like a time machine. That's kind of what Alan was saying. If you can go back in a time machine, that wonderful 1960 movie that had Rod Taylor in it that was called A Time Machine. It's probably been remade, I think, since then, but the original, which I have on DVD, is so wonderful. And it's kind of a fun little picture to paint, or an analogy of going back in time to a favorite place where everything just gelled. And so for me, for Alan, he was younger. He's a little bit younger than I am. I'm 55. I think he's 50. I think he just had his 50th birthday. I'm not sure, Alan, if I'm off on that. I'm sorry, but I know that you're, at least 50, if not a little older. I'm a little older, so for me, I don't have memories, unfortunately, as a kid, opening that Sega Genesis or Super NES or even Atari 2600. There was no, home consoles for me in my life. I was out on the street at 17 trying to survive, so it was many years. I waited literally a decade before I could enjoy what a lot of kids had at 15, 16 years old as they, unwrapped that wonderful new console for Christmas. But I can say my first experience, even though I wanted a 2600 and television and all that, it wasn't going to happen. I have certainly wonderful initial memories being in the arcades and playing my friends' Atari 2600s, but in '83, a good friend of mine, Bart Thompson. He has the same last name, but he wasn't any relation. His mother bought him a C64. He was a younger friend of mine, a next door neighbor. He got an early C64, and man, I was so jealous. I can't tell you how envious I was. And the one game he had was called Barnstormer. I've tried to find footage of it on YouTube. So far, I haven't been able to find anything on it unless something's recently been uploaded. But it was much more intricate than this very simplistic Atari 2600 Barnstormer. More like an isometric, kind of a top-down isometric view of the little plane with like a shadow under it, and it's going over rivers and under and through and over barns and telephone poles, and little roads would appear, and eventually you get to the city, and if you made one mistake or you screwed up, you had to go back to the very beginning and do it completely over again. But I would go over there, my God, for hours. Like, you think we were playing GTA 5, hours and hours on end. And then it was a wonderful thing just playing that game at that time. And then I moved to LA, and things happened. I was trying to survive on the streets and get my first job and, apartments and all that. And I kind of put a lot of gaming and consoles out of my mind. But deep down in the back recesses of my mind, I said, someday I'm going to get my first gaming system. And I wanted the C64. I was sold on it just off from that Barnstormer game. I think there were a couple other fairly rudimentary games, but I don't remember what they were. So it wouldn't be until 1987, I was literally 25 years old, 25, 26 in there somewhere, where I got my first system. It was, I think, around $500 I think I spent for this Commodore 64, a joystick, about a real nice little joystick for it, in 2 games, which were Silent Service, a Microprose submarine simulation game, which is just still to this day one of my favorite memories of playing a really immersive kind of military strategy game. And then the wonderful Paperboy, which I just played endlessly on loop at times. And it's kind of an interesting picture. Going back in time, that one special week in time, initially, I would say, was when I got my first C64. I had a partner that I just kind of started a sign business with. He had a wonderful little 1947 house down in Redondo Beach up on this giant hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He had this old kind of a detached garage, and in the very back of the garage, there was like a 10 by 12 foot little tiny room that was all insulated and drywall with kind of an elongated window that overlooked the ocean and the condos and houses kind of, beyond that, coming down the hill. It was a beautiful view. He rented that to me for $250 a month, which is one of the reasons why I could afford getting the C64, because my rent was so cheap. Everywhere else in LA, you'd pay a minimum of like $500 and $550 a month just for a studio apartment, very tiny. Which, compared to today, which is closer to $3,000 for that same apartment, it's actually not a bad deal. But anyway, I was very excited. My partner and I were great friends. Now, he had a woman he just moved in with. She had a son from her previous marriage. The guy was a brilliant robotics engineer who actually designed the robots that went in to clean up 3 Mile Island and all this. Very brilliant guy. They'd have him over for dinner. It was very odd. They'd be, the ex-husband would be there. There was a little boy, Ian, his name was. He was maybe 10 or 12, something like that. Very precocious, but highly intelligent. It was like having a little adult with you. And he had a C64. So when I first moved in with my partner, John, I go, "Oh, dude, you got a C64? Well, it actually belongs to my stepson, Ian. Yeah, he'd love to show it to you." And Ian showed me, and he's kind of interesting little kid, very articulate and intelligent. He fired it up, and he was showing me Paperboy. And another game that was called Mig Alley Ace, which I shortly bought when I got my first C64. I bought it like the following week. But that first week, my buddy, all of a sudden, his girl that he moved in was pregnant. She was having a baby that night. It was actually the night that I bought my C64. We just got paid on a big job. I went down to Montgomery Boards, down in Torrance, California, bought the thing. It was around $500, if I remember right, for everything, for 2 games. And the thing came, in the U.S. we had floppy disk. Apparently over in the U.K. they had cassettes, which is interesting. So, and they were $50 games back then. They were very expensive. Some were $60, some were real cheap ones, were $40, but they were very pricey. Be like paying, $150 for a game today, which is a lot of money. And it was certainly a lot of money for me then, but I was just happy with the 2 games. I got it, came back, hooked it up, and he said, "Dean, I got to take my Susan to the hospital. She's having the baby tonight. could you do me a huge favor and watch little Ian tonight? You can sit in the living room, stay here, or whatever. It really mean a lot to me. I said, certainly, I'd be happy to. And so I got there and I asked him, I said, would you mind if I hook my new 64? Because, yeah, sure. I mean, you already have one hooked up, but if you want to hook yours up, yeah, go ahead. Ian would probably like to hang out with you. So I spent the entire night with this little 10, 12-year-old kid, and we were taking turns playing Silent Service, which he could amazingly grasp. He was actually pretty, and he had a great time playing it. We played a lot of Paperboy as well. And it was so much fun. I remember literally playing it all night long. The sun came up. I made him eggs and eggs for breakfast and some sourdough toast. And I can still remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the lighting in the room, the hardwood floors, the whole deal. It was so cool. And it was one of the most magical, immersive moments. And the next morning, my friend, called me and said, "Hey, we're coming back from the hospital." Or Susan was still there at the hospital. So I'm coming back, and everything worked out good. I've got a new baby boy. He was so excited. And it was just one of those kind of very positive, special moments where all the planets lined up just right. And I felt good that I was helping my new friend and partner out, babysitting. But at the same time, I had a great time with this kid who was very acclimated with the C64. He showed me how to type everything in to load the game up and the whole deal. And I really learned a lot from that little kitty. And then since then, we had a lot of fun. And of course, the next day, I took my C64 out to my little apartment out back. I had in fact, I loved the Commodore so much. They had a 19-inch TV. I think I had a little 13-inch TV, so I went out and actually bought a brand new JVC 19 or 20-inch television just to play the C64 in my little, apartment out back there. And I had the most wonderful memories of just staying up all night and playing that Silent Service. The next week, I went out and got Migaliace, which my friend, the little kid Ian and I, and eventually we taught my friend John. He was kind of disconnected from video games. He didn't understand it. He didn't have the hand-eye coordination for it, but he would try it. He'd give it a shot. But we would all take turns, the three of us, playing Migaliace in split screen, which you're playing like a little Korean War F-86 Sabre, very rudimentary. It's funny, today you look back on the graphics and you go, my God, is that the same game? They look so simplistic and crude. But back then, there was nothing else like it. Compared to the 2600, the graphics, the sounds, the varied colors were much more advanced, and you would use your imagination to enter into this world of immersion. And it was amazing how you could put 5, 6, 7 hours like nothing and be totally engrossed in that game. That's why I love the C64. Later on, I got games like Migaliace, Gunship, Airborne Rangers quickly became one of my favorites. I'm so happy that it's in my modded Xbox. I can't wait to return to that one. I even tried it for a little bit. I didn't know what the button mapping is. That's something I'm trying to work out right now before I make a video on my modded Xbox. So good. F-17 Stealth Fighter, this wonderful music, box of Conan Fugue in D minor, had the little kind of a Commodore music in it. It was so cool. Now, I had a friend that had the Amiga with advanced graphics and more of like a PC type deal. To me, the Commodore, I was very happy. I was just so happy to have my first console. I never looked at what else someone else had. Oh, I wish I'd be happier if I had that. I was so thrilled with that. So I just invested in the games. I think I had between 80 and 100 games. I think upwards of 100 games for the C64. They were very expensive. That'd be like a small fortune at $50 a pop today. Spy vs. Spy, The Island Caper, one of my favorite games, Dive Bomber, Gunship, F-15 Strike Eagle, Revs Plus, a really tough game, but it actually had real road courses, the first racing game that actually had the hills and the undulations of real road course Formula One tracks. So good. The sounds, the memory, the static interference with a goddamn RF cable, no matter what happened. You'd have some weird shielding problem. Every now and then there'd be kind of a staticky, fuzzy image on the screen. It drove me nuts. The entire time I had that C64, it would have this intermittent problem. I kept buying new cables and little RF converter boxes and all this stuff. I could never figure it out. I remember having friends up from Long Beach that worked for McDonnell Douglas Aerospace, that were like aerospace engineers, and they loved to come up and in my little apartment, my friend Tony, he was an engineer, and he loved that F-15 stealth fighter, and we'd take turns for hours playing that. It was so much fun for microprose. So those are my early special memories of the C64. I can't wait to get another one. I'm very excited about this emulated modded Xbox ones. I hope I can just relive just a few of those experiences, even if it's just very briefly. It meant so much. I wasn't into a lot of the real kind of arcadey games other than Paperboy. I did have a few of those. I was more into the military sims, and that's why when things advanced later, I loved a lot of the graphics came with it. So, Alan, that's my very first special memory in place and time with that C64. I'll never forget it. You know, at the same time, the movie Predator came out around that same period when I bought that. I remember going with my partner John down to see the movie Predator. You know, Lethal Weapon, movies like that. It was just such a wonderful period where I was really feeling good about myself as a young adult. I had my own business at 25 years old. We had a partner. We rented at least a really nice place down in Manhattan Beach that we worked out, a little sign shop. I had my '69 Dodge Charger at the time. Life was good. It was a good time to be alive, and that C64 sure had a lot of good memories. The second one, if I can go back in 2 more times, because it meant so much to me, was the launch of the PlayStation 1. I was going to get, and I saved up for 7 months to get that very expensive $700 Panasonic 3DO. But I'm glad I got the PS1. I went there, and for like an hour, I'm vacillating. I'm looking, okay, they've got return fire, but PlayStation 1 has return fire. 3DO has shockwave assault, but PlayStation has it too. But what sold me was the PlayStation games. And I've mentioned this in another rant I did. When I saw this box, and this is the second box I bought of this, I rebought the original tall box for $20, I might add, which I think is a good deal. I saw this Twisted Metal box, and I go, my God. And then I saw the back of the box, you are what you drive, and it showed all of these little cars, and then it had this little, this first-person view right here of inside the cab. I just said, my God. You know, if the 3DO had this, I might have gotten the 3DO. And of course, I'm glad I bought this because this continued to go on and on and on. And the 3DO sadly fizzled out. I still would like to get a 3DO in a few games, but my God, this was so good. The night I bought this, I had just met my present wife back in '95. I still had that little JVC TV. I moved in with her. She had a really nice little condo in the city of Orange, and I went out and got this. I got this game. I bought Return Fire, which I have here, and I bought, I think it was the first Need for Speed game, and I got Agile Warrior. I think were the first games. I think Road Rash might have been one of them. If not, it was the very following week. I was buying games all the time. But the first few games that I bought for the PlayStation 1 were incredible. In fact, I loved this so much the very next night, after the first night, I went out and bought a 35-inch Hitachi Ultravision TV from Circuit City for $24.99 plus tax. That was a lot of money. That would be like paying at least double that. It'd be like paying $5,000 or $6,000 for a TV today, if you can believe it. That's a shitload of money. At the time, my business was really taking off. I was doing very, very well. I just sold a huge job, and I had the money to finally get that PlayStation 1, which was $729 for 4 games, a memory card, an extra controller, and my wife Laura and I played the hell out of these games. The fun we had in split screen playing this, my buddy Mikey that I work with, I was an art director at a big sign company down there. One of my employees or guys under me loved gaming. In fact, I gave him my C64, and he would come over and we would play the hell out of this for hours on end in split screen. And then, of course, later we'd get the Twisted Metal 2 that we'd play. So much fun. The evenings that I would play this wonderful Need for Speed game for hours and hours on end. I can't tell you, to play this on back then, a 35-inch TV was like the biggest TV you could get. It really was. And it was it was the Hitachi Ultravision. Super crisp graphics, built-in surround sound, a very, very nice television set. And that in conjunction with this, I will never forget. That's why I can't honestly say that the C64 was the best, because the feelings I felt, again, I was within a new relationship, so you feel really good. You get all that romantic feelings. You're feeling you're at your best. Your self-esteem is great. Then buying a very expensive new TV and having the new toys. I had a friend of mine that was a tile contractor. His name was Dean, too. He had a Corvette as well as I had a black Vet. He had a blue one. He would come over, and he loved to drive, and he couldn't believe the graphics on this. He'd come over, Dean, can I play that Need for Speed? And we'd play this, every night after work. So much fun. The memories and immersion, and I thought the graphics couldn't get any better than this. That's why that first few weeks that the PlayStation 1 came out was absolutely magical. You could actually rip music CDs and listen to your favorite heavy metal. I listened to a lot of King Diamond, Testament, bands like that at the time. While I was playing this wonderful flight arcade game, very, very cool. I'll never forget those memories. And of course, later on, you get games like, Myst, Jet Moto, fantastic, wonderful Critical Depth, I absolutely love. Twisted Metal 2, I can't even count how many hours. 150 hours with this game, with friends and split screen, God only knows. Loaded, fantastic. Soviet Strike, Nuclear Strike, and of course the wonderful Duke Nukem Time to Kill, which later on, and this came a couple years later, or a year or two later, I think in '97, I think. This game was very special. Even my first week with this game could go down as one of the best weeks in memory of gaming ever. It was so special to me. And then especially all the Need for Speed games, but I love this one the most. Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit, fantastic. So that was my second favorite console. Wonderful, very magical. That place and time with that apartment. And then we soon got a new condo with even nicer new couch and everything. So special. And it was all centered around that PlayStation 1. The third and final special time machines capsule in time was the initial launch of the PlayStation 2. To be honest, it was, and again, even though you think that you can't top the feelings and the immersion and the special, that excitement of getting that new console, I was like chomping at the bit. This is before the internet, where there was really no. If you didn't see a TV commercial for it, it's like it didn't exist. You might even see a magazine ad, rarely, but you had you go into it blind. So all of a sudden there's this mystical rumors of a PlayStation 2. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it was, but I said, it's got to be better. It's got to be better. And man, was it. I was kind of, at the time, we had just moved into a new place, just bought a new car too, so I didn't have much money. Getting the PlayStation 2 was really a reach for me, that when I had to have it at launch. It was one of those things where I made an exception. So all I had, this is the greatest hits one, all I had for 4 months was just this greatest hit, not the greatest hits, but was the Twisted Metal Black. My time with Twisted Metal Black, and I've done a little video of this when I first bought this and played it on my analog Sony Trinitron, was so memorable. My wife says, if I go ahead and we'll get this PlayStation 2, but it's going to be a while before you can buy any games for it. I said, listen, let me just get one game. Let me get the Twisted Metal game. It means so much to me. I won't ask for anything. Well, just play this for months. I did 4 months of nothing but this game. I mastered it. I played every vehicle, beat the game on multiple different vehicles, and had to see those endings. I mastered this. I love this. I have so many versions. I have it digitally for the PlayStation 3. And I also have, I believe for the PlayStation 4 as well, a fantastic game. Just that first week of playing this, the immersion, the really dark music, the vibe, the way the menus look, the way each of the cars would scroll into view and they were like coming out at the screen at you. It was so immersive and it was so real compared to the PlayStation 1. It's like, my God, this is the best. It can't get any better than this. Of course, today we got like photorealism, but this game meant so much. And it wasn't shortly after that I had, I bought the SOCOM, game with the headset. This was incredible. The immersion with this game, especially with this headset, fantastic, unbelievable. The game that sold me on FPS games, I hated them. I never would play them on the PlayStation 1 until I got this game. I think I had a friend that bought this and said, Dean, you've got to play Red Faction. I know you love that Total Recall movie, and I was really into all of the sci-fi movies back then. So I took a chance. I go, oh, I'm not really into FPS, but you do, just try it. I put this in. This game sold me on FPS games. I was like hungry for them after this. The immersion of this and how much this meant to me at the time was off the hook. It wasn't shortly after I gave this a chance, which I passed on when it first came out. But I one day gave it a try, and my God, this to this day is my favorite PlayStation 2 game of all time. And believe it or not, is my favorite port of the game. Even though in some respects the original Xbox version has a little bit better lighting and a little bit more sharper resolution and graphics, because this was a single player only, they did a lot more with the story. There's additional things, graphics, it's more colorful, more detailed environments, as crude as they are compared to the Xbox version. This is my favorite port, unbelievable. I could easily just go back a week in time on this game with the PlayStation 2 alone. I was living in Apple Valley, the same town where they filmed The Hills Have Eyes, ironically, out in the high desert of California, about 5,500 feet elevation, way up in the desert, good 90 minutes outside of Los Angeles. But the time and the evenings I would play this at night were just so special. I could never go back. I'd give anything to have a time machine just for the first week I played this alone. My God, Grand Theft Auto 3, so good. Vice City a year later, unbelievable, so good. That's why I can't discount, just because they're newer generations, I can't discount them. And of course, San Andreas, Manhunt, one of my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is an old Blockbuster video rental. In fact, I need to rebuy. I want to get another version of this, but I have this for the original Xbox as well, and I need to get this for the PlayStation 4. So good. Unbelievably immersive. I spent a whole night until the morning the sun came up playing this. A buddy of mine came an hour and a half up from LA to play it with me and take turns. I'll never forget that. I've never had, gaming today has never been as good as those days on the PlayStation 2. Certainly loved Manhunt 2. There's my original Navy SEALs game. SOCOM 2, very, very good as well. Need for Speed 2, Hot Pursuit. One of my best friends in Apple Valley came over. He bought this first. I had to have it shortly after. Incredible. Fantastic game. Even better than the original Xbox version. And of course, the wonderful Roadkill. Now, these are just to name a few. So this is kind of taking it beyond a week, but I wanted to share those experiences as not one, but three magical moments in time. Those three consoles, and believe me, the original Xbox is almost right in there too. I mean, I could go on and on about my first, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and everything else, but those first three consoles, the Super NES I had as well right after the C64, and it was very special with Wing Commander and games like that. But those three were really the best. The C64, the PlayStation 1, and the PS2. I will never forget the immersion. I will never forget how good everything was. It's what's strange is I can actually look back, and because anytime you have a strong emotion that's linked to a memory, you remember a lot of the nuances. You'll remember the lighting in the room. You'll remember even like smells and people that you saw at the time, music, the movies that you would rent, at Blockbuster and watch the same weekend as, after playing 7 hours of a PS1 game, hey, let's stop and let's watch a great movie, And it was, each of those times, there are linked so many memories of textures and lighting and happy emotions and feelings and good friendship and fellowship with your friends playing split screen. I will never forget that. To me, those are the golden ages of gaming, and frankly, something that the reason why I'm a retro collector and collect video games to this day is, if nothing else, just to look at these boxes again and to open them up and to see the original manual, and to see that game disc and even the foam, I mean all of it, and to smell it and look at it and hold it and cherish it, it is the world to me. That's what it is to be a retro collector. That's why it's wonderful, even though you can play them emulated, and it's wonderful to have the original hardware and games, to look at that industrial design of that console, to see that game box, to open it up, to look through that rich manual, many of them in color. You could sit in the toilet for an hour and just read the manuals. It's so good. And we've gotten away from so much of that with modern gaming. That's the sad part of it. But believe me, I love my Mad Max with a photorealistic sky and the graphics and the particle effects and the lighting and the weather, and the detailed graphics and the wonderful sound design, and is so much to the new games that make them so wonderful and immersive. But they will never replace the magic of the early days. So thank you, Alan, so much for giving this to the community. What you did and what's the picture that you painted of your early days with that C64. You really touched a nerve with me, and thank you so much for that. It's one of my favorite videos. I immediately posted it to my Facebook, and I said, I better do a VR to this. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Leave in the comments. Name 1, 2, or 3 of what were your favorite consoles and memories. Just take like a week out of each one of those consoles, and why did you like it? What was it where the planets all lined up and it just fired on all 8 cylinders and you had a wonderful experience with gaming? I certainly would love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy those games, past or present. Thanks, guys.